The Malcontentment TANGO is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with three key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live as they happen. To defend the First Amendment, using our rights of a free press and to petition the government for redress of grievances, and to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals, including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support us is to like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Periscope, Twitch, and Instagram. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.
Hey everybody, we're back, and how are you doing? I think we have solved the echo issue, and with that, thank you for your patience. Thank you for sticking around. For those of you on the other channels, like I know for those watching on Facebook, we never dropped. We just went to the feedback, but I know on Twitch, YouTube, and Periscope, we would have completely dropped to come back up. So for those of you who stuck around or are coming back, thank you so much, because we have a lot that we want to cover tonight. Single topic, but it is a big topic. Earlier, so late last night, Jason Rantz broke embargo. My Northwest Bonneville Communications broke embargo. There was a story that was coming out, and it was asked by the city of Seattle and the Seattle Police Department to essentially wait to release that until Friday morning. Jason Rantz on Thursday night released it, re-released it out. I wrote my little screed. It is what it is. And of course, what the big story is that there was a record number of Seattle police officers that resigned in the month of September, 39. And additionally, there's an additional number of officers, 14, that have gone on extended leave, which basically is coasting to retirement. There may be potentially a couple of officers there that could be dealing with injuries or whatever, or family things. I always try to give the benefit of the doubt. But from all the evidence there, this is people that are coasting to the finish line for their retirement and pension. Yay us. The total number of officers that have left the Seattle Police Department since May is up to 118, according to Jason Rantz. Now, remember, the first kind of protests in Seattle are May 30th. So tossing May in there is already kind of being a little bit intellectually dishonest. And we're going to go ahead and get into that and get into what the real problem is. And we've done a ton of research. We got a lot of numbers, and we're just going to go ahead and roll the first clip.
Also new this morning, the Seattle Police Department saw a record number of officers leave the force last month. This according to a new Seattle Budget Office report just released this week. It found 39 officers left SPD last month alone. That's double the highest number of any month on record. Another 14 officers were on extended leave. The report also suggests 911 calls and response times have been increasing. We should note that the City Council is scheduled to deliberate on Tuesday whether to make further cuts to SPD.
So let's go through the central argument here, right? The central argument to all of this is basically this. We don't have enough police officers in Seattle, and getting rid of more police officers is going to turn us into a hive of scum and villainy worse than the Mos Eisley space station. That is basically the argument that is being put out there, as simplistic as you can get. But it's not that simple, especially when you start diving into the numbers. And we started diving into the numbers. And what we did is we did a comparison of 7 West Coast cities that are somewhat comparable to size or crime rates to Seattle. A couple of cities we chafed out. We chafed out Los Angeles simply because Los Angeles is that's like a Chicago. It's like a New York. The other thing is Los Angeles, it's very, very hard to look at LAPD versus LA County PD numbers because there's a lot of overlap in there. And so they have kind of this, there's a little bit of a unique thing. And again, LA is just this monstrous city from a population standpoint. And with that, we're going to go ahead and start diving into the numbers and start picking this apart. And we're going to go into what I believe is the real problem. And I'm not just going to get up here and bitch and be a malcontent. We're also going to get into what I think can fix the problem. So the first thing I want to show here is annual police budgets by municipality. So we compared Seattle, Washington to San Jose, California, San Francisco, California, San Diego, California, Sacramento, California, Portland, Oregon, Oakland, California, and Fresno, California. You might be going, Fresno? Who goes to Fresno? Should have had the airplane clip there. There's perfect little airplane clip that from the movie that could have gone right there. With that said, Fresno is over 500,000 people. Seattle is about 750,000 people on the census data that was the most recently available, which is 2018. And so it was in the same league. Seattle's police budget, annual police budget by municipality, is $389 million. No, it's not. It's $406 million. Yes, it was $406 million, but they voted and the mayor said no, and then the council said yes. And so I don't want to give the chuds anything to go, you're cooking the book. So it's $389 million, not $406 million now. Let's go back to the slide. So we compare these budgets here. There's only 3 municipalities that have bigger budgets of those baseline cities, and they are San Jose, San Francisco, and San Diego. Ha! See, we should be spending more money. But there's a thing. Seattle, as I said earlier, has about 750,000 people. San Francisco has about 880,000 people. San Jose has over 1 million people, and San Diego is 1.4 million people. And we're going to go ahead then and break that out. Sacramento is actually a little over 500,000, and they have the smallest budget, $158 million. Portland's budget, $225 million. And then you have Oakland at $300 million and Fresno at $202 million. So Seattle's budget is pretty healthy, but how healthy is it really? And let's look at what's kind of going into those numbers. So the Seattle Times did an analysis on August 10th, 2020 in this story, and we've pulled that chart from the Seattle Times. We thank you very much. And the average, the median salary of an SPD officer in 2018 was $104,000. In 2019, it went to $153,000. Who out there would like to get a 50% pay increase in a year? Anybody? I'd like a 50% pay increase in a year. 50% pay increase in a year. Top 10 officers and their salaries are up there. 5 patrol officers. Not captains, not lieutenants, not patrol officers made over $300,000 in 2019, including 1 patrol officer that made the paltry sum of $414,000. When you add it all up, they worked more than 2 years in a year. And the Seattle Police Department can't actually fully account for all of it. And they can't answer the questions that are being asked them, like, how does a patrol officer make $414,000 a year? Because they use paper time slips in 2020. And they're like, and the way the pays and incentives are set up, it is possible to get paid for more than 24 hours in a 24-hour day. And there are some, and going through the records in that particular officer, where it appears that he is paid for 27, 28 hours in a day. Just 24 hours in a day. So the police budget is kind of bloated. But then really, let's compare it to some of the others. Now, we pulled the information from Open Payroll, and we pulled that today. Seattle Public School employee salaries. Now, this is across, just like that mean salary is across the police department, this is across all of Seattle Public Schools. So this isn't just teachers. This is administrators, but then this is also teaching assistants and substitute teachers, people that are going to be paid lower than a teacher will. And for Seattle Public Schools, the average salary in 2018, because that's the most recent data that was available on Open Payrolls, $55,416. So 2019 Average SPD officer, mean before benefits, $153,000. The average public school employee makes 1/3 of that. Can you already kind of see where we're going with this? Well, we're going to get into that in a little bit because that gets into the solutions. Now, what about the fire department, right? We like firefighters, so we pulled that data also too, and we looked across the entire fire department. And the 2019, because that's what was available on open payrolls, for anybody with the title fire in it, fire, 1,027 employees that came up in there with the title, with the word fire in their job title. And the average salary there is $87,339, which is still half of that of a Seattle police officer. But that's just not all of it, right? Because I know there's people right now that are probably going, yeah, but. So let's go into the yeah, buts. Officer cost per resident by municipality. So what does this mean? This means that for every man, woman, they, and child that lives in Seattle, the tax burden to cover the police budget at $389 million based on the population is $522. So if you're a family of four, you have a single person that works, which I know is more of the outlier at this point. There's a significant other stay home and 2 kids. Your burden as a taxpayer living in Seattle is about $2,050 a year based on the $389 million police budget. So the bigger this number is, the more that a city is spending based on the number of people that live in the city. So who actually spends more? Well, there's only 2 cities that spend more. That is San Francisco and Oakland. San Francisco spends about $793, I'm rounding by 25 cents, per resident, per officer. And Oakland spends almost $700, $699. Every other city in our comparison spent less, and the only city that remotely comes close is none of them. So, and remember, San Francisco has more population and is a much more densely populated city. And also remember, Oakland is Oakland, right? I mean, Oakland has a reputation of having a very, very serious crime problem. Not slagging out on you, Oakland. I love you. Even though the Hertz there doesn't love me. But that's a whole separate story unto itself. So how many officers per municipality, right? Because we can look at total number of police force. Now, we looked at the 1,203, the number that came out today. So we're using the number of officers, right? Patrol officers. That's what this number is. 1,203 was Seattle. So for every 619 residents that live in Seattle, there's a patrol officer. So if you look at San Diego, it is 1,070. San Jose, it's 1,074. San Francisco, 472. So San Francisco got a lot more police per capita, per citizen in their city. And the only other city that has more is Portland. No, sorry. Misreading my own chart. Is Sacramento at 637. That's it. All of the other cities have, I'm sorry. I got this all messed up. It's Oakland again at 574. I'm not reading my notes right. It's Oakland at 574. So there's only 2 cities that have more officers per capita. San Francisco and Oakland. Oh, what a surprise. They also have bigger budgets than Seattle. Everybody else has smaller police forces, including the larger cities of San Jose and the larger cities of San Diego. So what about the size, right? If we go into the size, because, well, maybe this is an issue of area, right? Because if you have a very large area, in order to have effective coverage, you need more officers in theory, right? So if we look at Seattle and if we go to officers per square mile, that number comes out to about 14. So for every square mile of Seattle, we'll get into what the patrol area is for those officers. For every square mile, there is 14 possible officers, assuming all 1,203 officers are working at the same time, but that same assumption is all the other cities. There is only one city with more officers, and that's, again, San Francisco at 40, 39.77. So San Francisco has vastly more than any other city. And then it's Seattle, and then it isn't even close. Then you get to Oakland, but Oakland is under 10, and then everybody else is half or below. What about square miles that they actually have to cover? Seattle is the third largest. The smallest is San Francisco. San Francisco is a very, very dense, small area. It's 47 square miles. That is the amount of area. This is rounded numbers. That's the amount of area that the San Francisco Police Department covers. Right behind them is Oakland at 78 miles, and then Seattle at 84 miles. And then you have San Diego, 372 square miles. That is not the county. The county is over 4,000 square miles. I know. I was like, 300, really? And I looked, yes, it is 372 square miles. That is the patrol area for the San Diego Police Department. Every other city is larger. No matter how you slice these numbers, because it's one thing to go, well, we have a police budget of $389 million, and we have 1,203 police officers, and it's not enough. But it's another thing then to go, well, wait a minute, let's benchmark. Let's look at some other communities. And here's the thing that I'm left scratching my head on. The only city that consistently comes up with more money spent and more police officers is San Francisco. And I'm really confused by that, because when people talk about San Francisco, this is what I'm told.
You don't know San Francisco, Butters. It was the breeding ground of the hippie movement in the 60s. I swore I would never set foot in San Francisco. God help me.
Right? So is the suggestion from the people that are screaming that we need more police that we become more like San Francisco? Because looking at these numbers, that seems to be the argument. And then here's the other thing. Where does the money exactly come from? If you want more police officers, they're not free. The average salary, mean salary, the mean, average and mean, they're two different words, is $153,000 a year. Teachers are 55, firefighters are 87 as an aggregate group. So at $153,000, where does the money come from? Right? Is this, do you want this bar to go higher? Do you want us to catch up to Oakland? Do you want us to get up to San Francisco? Because I don't think that's what you want when you say that you want more officers. So then, what is part of the problem?
The King County Prosecutor's Office blames backlogs and delays at the Seattle Police Department for the fact that they're struggling to charge more people for recent riots and for why so many people who were arrested are being released right back onto the street. KOMO's Jonathan Cho is live in Seattle with this Operation Crime and Justice story. Jonathan?
Yeah, Eric, the 18 people arrested on Sunday are back on the street because in some cases the evidence just did not hold up in court.
The allegations as written in the police report.
Prosecutors accuse one man of kicking an officer in the face, the other for trying to take a can of pepper spray during a clash with police. But the judge let them go. Now all 18 protesters arrested during Sunday night's riot are back on the street. The judge says right now there is not enough evidence to hold them and proceed.
We need evidence referred to us
by police.
Casey McNerthney with the King County Prosecutor's Office says they just don't have the right type of evidence in all cases.
The information that's needed for an arrest is not the same as the information that is needed to hold somebody, and it's not the same as the information that's needed to file charges.
Bottom line, the County Prosecutor's Office says there's a backlog and delay at Seattle Police that's been going on for weeks. Detectives who send reports are playing catch-up from the protests, overwhelmed with paperwork and cannot get the overtime they need to do their jobs effectively and in a timely manner.
They've been really trying to cut back on their overtime as they've been directed to do. But what that means is when you have high-skilled protests like this and large events that take incredible amounts of staffing, it makes it harder to get the information to prosecutors.
No one with SPD returned our request for comment on the delays and overtime issue. The mayor's office also referred us back to Seattle Police. But McNerthney is assuring the public several protest-related cases are being prosecuted, and the people released could be charged later if new compelling information comes in.
We will look at those individually, and we'll be very public about our charging decisions.
And while suspects must be released from jail within 48 hours without probable cause, prosecutors can still charge them months, or in some cases years, after they've been released. Live from Seattle, Jonathan Cho, Como News.
Sorry. I was watching the video. Amazing, isn't it? Let's unpack that. I know some people are like, why are you using a protester video? Because that video illustrates part of the problem. And the problem isn't protesters. The problem, and we're going to get into the numbers. The problem is how the system works. So this is how the system works. And this was explained kind of in that Como and also by the municipal court. Police officer arrests someone. I am arresting you. Now, just because someone is arrested doesn't mean that they have probable cause. It doesn't mean that they can move on then with charges. They have to give evidence to the prosecutor's office to file charges. Now, if there's no charges after 48 hours, because there's this document called the Constitution, they have to cut people loose. Now, that doesn't mean they're cut loose that no charges don't happen. And so, for example, let's say the police come in and it's a murder scene and the person is there and they got blood all over them and they got the knife and they're holding it over the dead body and they tell the person drop the knife and they drop it and they handcuff it and they can get some fingerprints in real quick and the fingerprints are on there. So within those 48 hours, they have enough for probable cause. Or what they might do, they may not have the murder charge, but they may have some other thing that they go, well, we have enough probable cause for this so we can hold the person. But it is still incumbent on the police to provide evidence to support the arrest. They can't just arrest somebody and make it up. Seattle police. And we know that protesters are getting arrested and stuff is kind of being made up. And as the story goes on to point out, what happens is the person's cut loose, prosecutors are going, we need evidence, police are going, we're backlogged, and then those charges can hang for months, and in some cases for years, depending on the severity of the charges. Now, the Seattle police is using this as a tactic to take protesters out of the field, because what they do is they arrest somebody, they stack up some charge, a gross misdemeanor or even a felony charge. And we get into felony charges because that goes into a different court. So we're going to go ahead and just say a gross misdemeanor or multiple gross misdemeanors that they have nothing to support. They have nothing to support those charges, but those charges are hanging over your head. So the fear that people who are protesting are, and some people that are in the press and some people who are medics, and other people that have been arrested, including some people that are just people that are standing by and not doing anything. The fear is, well, they get arrested a second time because that's part of what they hang over your head. Well, those charges could come back. So let's look at some of the numbers here and break this down. Now, this information is being sourced from Como News when they did Seattle is Dying, which was in March of 2019. At that time, 2016 was the most available data that was out there. And we know that the numbers have only gotten worse from this point. So what happens is a person is arrested. And then the police file a report with the Seattle Municipal Court. When they file that report means, hey, we think you should charge this person with a crime. Now, if that is going to be a misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor. If a person is charged with a felony, that is handled in the Superior Court, which is King County, and we're going to break that down because I'm going to melt your brain with this. Wait till we get to King County. Your brains are going to explode. All right, back to this. So for every 100 reports filed in 2016, and you know, and I know, and I know, and they know, and you know, it's only gotten worse. 46 don't get filed. What that means is that of 100 reports go to the Seattle Municipal Court for criminal cases, nothing even happens with 46. They just poof. They go away. So that leaves 54 cases. So out of those remaining 54, 18 end up dismissed. 18 end up in a state called no resolution, which is a big bucket of different things. And then that leaves the last 18. 18 end in convictions. Now you're probably going, good! 18, at least 18. No, it's not good. It's actually even a smaller number than that. And by the way, I am not standing up here as pro-prosecution and pro-courts and pro-throw everybody in jail. I'm giving you the numbers so you can just see how broken the system is from top to bottom and how we'll get to the punchline, but how you being deceived and where you're being deceived and where changes need to be made. Now, let's go to King County. So the most recent available data from there for King County Superior Court is from February 2019 to January 2020. Now, during that period, there were 5,847 criminal cases that went through King County Superior Court. King County Superior Court is felony crimes. And understand this, it's anywhere in King County. So don't associate all these numbers with Seattle, because there's people probably right now, there wasn't that many felonies charged. This isn't Seattle. If it's a felony, you go to King County Superior Court. So North Bend, King County. Skycomish, you go into King County Superior Court. There's an asterisk there. What's the asterisk? The asterisk there is because we did chafe out a few cases, like literally less than 100 cases that were kind of in this bucket of like other. There's an other bucket, but then there's like this other bucket, and we're going to chafe those out. 5,847 criminal cases, 4,606 end in guilty pleas. Now, I know that there's probably people from the right now going, yeah, and I know that there's probably people on the left right now going, that's horrible. And I'm telling you right now, both of you don't have it right. We're going to explain what that number means. 972 cases are dismissed. Here is the number that if you claim to love the Constitution, if you claim to love due process, this is the number that should outrage you. From February 2019 to January 2020, of 5,847 cases, 243 went to trial. And of those, only 185 were trialed by jury. 243 cases. That's 4%. 4%. 96% of the criminal cases from that time period that went to King County, which are then the felony cases, they're the worst of the worst, had a jury trial. That's it. So let's talk about the 79% where they pled guilty. Yeah! Oh! Whichever side of the political spectrum you're on. No, it's not as good as you think. Let me explain to you how those numbers work and how King County and Seattle Municipal Court also, and for that matter, every other jurisdiction in the country plays fast and loose. Because at the end of the day, right, we elect Dan Sattenberg, and he has to look tough on crime, right? Look at his conviction rate. I get 79% of people to plead guilty. You should keep voting for me. Only 972 cases dismissed. I got a good track record. No, you don't. Let me explain to you how it works and how they play fun with numbers. Let's say somebody goes up into King County Court and they're going up there for second-degree assault. And let's take all the politics out of it. This is a bad dude or dudette or a bad they, right? It is a terrible, awful crime that they've committed. It is one that, whether you're left, right, in between, you're just like, okay? Let's say it's a first-time offense. Now, what may happen is the prosecutors may sit down and go, we don't have the money, time, or resources to do the jury trial. So here's what we're willing to put on the table. You plead guilty to fourth-degree assault. You're going to have a criminal record. You're going to spend 30 days in jail. We'll give you 6 months of home detention. You're going to have to take an anger management class, which, by the way, are useless. You're going to have to pay restitution to the victim, and you're going to have to pay fine because the court wants their money, because that's really kind of what it's all about. Now, the lawyer is going to sit down with that criminal defendant, because then, right, what they're going to come back is, now, if you don't accept this deal, we're going to nail your ass to the wall on second-degree assault, and you're going to go to prison for 8 years. So, up to you. We'll give you and your lawyer a week to think about it. Now, that lawyer is going to sit down, even whether that's a public defender or that is a paid lawyer, unless you in that third tier, right? Because there's 3 layers of justice in the country, not 2. There's 3. You're in the third tier. We can make this go away. But for the rest of us, no. Most lawyers are going to say to you, take the plea deal, especially if they think it's going to be a big uphill road on that second-degree assault charge. So then they come back and say, yes, we're going to take your plea deal. Guess what? They just pled guilty to the crime. So that is how they play fast and loose with that conviction number. Because the conviction number doesn't ultimately associate with the crime they were originally charged with. So somebody's charged, say, with first-degree murder, and they decide to plead down to voluntary manslaughter. Actually, I don't know if we have voluntary manslaughter, whatever the equivalent is in RCW. We won. And on and on and on. Let's say you have somebody up there and they've committed felony harassment with an ex-spouse in the middle of a divorce. And they are, looking at this with the DV tag. But they've had no criminal record up to this point. There might be a little bit of kind of DV, but the police called a few times, but nothing, right? There's nothing kind of prior. So they're going to go like, all right, this person probably lost their crap in the divorce. We're punishing them and dragging through the mud is going to be a really big deal. It's not going to help. So what we're going to do for this person, and by the way, people who are white get these offers way more than the BIPOC community, and to a lesser extent, the LGBTQIA community. But then what they'll do is like, look, tell you what, we'll give you deferred adjudication. You plead guilty to the charge, and then if you're good for 12 months or 18 months or 24 months, and you'll go to a domestic violence class, which, by the way, are also worthless, but a good way to enrich the court system. And then you'll do some supervision. You'll have to pay for that supervision, which is, of course, good for putting money into the court system. And as long as you finish the class and maybe do some public service and you don't get in trouble, then all of this goes away. That counts as a guilty plea in those numbers. So these numbers, they're fantasy. They're absolute fantasy. You're just making it up. No, I'm not just making it up. That's the report it's pulled from. You can find it in a 10-second Google search. So what's the answer, right? So what's the real problem here? Because the real problem here isn't we don't have enough police officers. When we benchmark to all the other cities that were in the benchmarking, and again, really the only big city that we left out was LA. And Bakersfield, I looked at Bakersfield for giggles, 400,000 people. And I'm like, it's now getting, compared to the other cities in there, that's getting small. So we set the base limit at about 500,000 and we set the cap at about 1.5 or 1.4 if you want to get real pedantic with us. We don't have enough police officers. Well, that's interesting because the only cities that have more per citizen police officers is San Francisco and Oakland.
You don't know San Francisco, Butters. It was the breeding ground of the hippie movement in the 60s. I swore I would never set foot in San Francisco. God help me.
Right? Because that's what we say about, is that like, we want to go to San Francisco? Is that the argument? Because way I understand it from...
It's a cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller.
That San Francisco is the most evil place on the face of the earth. That this is, like we have the Eric Cartman clip of liberal bastion hell. We don't want to be like, no, nothing San Francisco does is right. However, San Francisco has way more police officers than us, way more by every measure that you can have, and a vastly bigger budget. So really, things are working better in San Francisco. Why are things so much better in San Diego? San Diego is right on the border of Mexico and Tijuana. We know that this is a big drug conduit there. We know that there is gang activity in San Diego. I'm not slagging out San Diego, and I'm not slagging out Mexico. I'm talking facts. So why is San Diego so much better from a crime rate, from every measurable rate that they have? Yeah, their police budget is bigger, but they are a vastly bigger city from population, and they're a vastly bigger city from a square mileage standpoint. Plus, they're backed up by the San Diego County Sheriff's Department. I get King County backs up some of the stuff in there too, but as I've witnessed, there's like, well, this is King County, and this, we were up on the bridge in South Park is a good example of this. The answer isn't more police. We have enough police. We have a bloated police budget. You're getting ripped off, Seattle, and you're getting lied to. You're getting lied to by the Seattle Police Officers Guild. You're getting lied to by borderline hate groups like Safe Seattle, who are clutching their pearls and going, oh my goodness, if we don't have more police. And look at where we're investing as a city. Mean officer salary, $153,000. Mean for Seattle schools, $55,000. Firefighters, $87,000. As I understand it, although I haven't looked at Amazon salaries lately, and I get it, Amazon, they get their stock and all that other. What the ceiling at Amazon is $160,000 for salary before benefits. That's the ceiling. That's as much as you can make in salary at Amazon. So the mean salary of an SPD officer is equivalent to an L6 at Amazon. Is this rational? Does this even make sense? More police are not the answer. We need better investment in the community. The schools are clearly, when you look at the numbers, the schools are underfunded. If we're not educating our children, regardless of whether they are black, indigenous, person of color, or white, and white schools are funded better and are in better shape and get better equipment, we know this. And we also know because Cairo, before they fired Ron and Don were all over the broken promises of the city of Seattle and the broken promises to Cleveland High School. I believe it was Cleveland High School. And the investments they kept saying was coming and coming and coming, and it's never come. And I don't even know if it's even come to this point anymore because we don't have Ron and Don anymore because Cairo just went full off the rails right wing, having their thumb down on them, going, are you following up on this? Did they ever get their playing field? Let me know in the comments. I'm willing to bet I know what the answer is. Their new playing field that they're supposed to get, just a playing field. Forget other improvements. This happens all around the world. We're going to jump a little bit into it. It's not non sequitur because I'm going to bring it back. After 9/11 happened in this country, Osama bin Laden were like, it's 9/11. Where's it going with this? Stick with me here. After 9/11 happened, counterterrorist experts, what their concern was here in the United States is there would be a second phase. And the second phase was we would enter into this phase of essentially Israeli-style terror, that there were a number of sleeper cells within the United States, and you would have people walking into schools and malls and restaurants and blowing themselves up. And that was the real concern, that these attacks just angered us, but then this follow-up to this would be the thing that would paralyze with fear and bring our nation to our knees. And it didn't happen. But according to the FBI, because now we have almost 20 years of distance, and so stuff is getting declassified, and this was declassified years ago, that there were orders that went out. Okay, it's time to go blow yourself up. But some of these people that are in these sleeper cells have been in hiding in plain sight in the United States 4, 5, 6 years. And when they were told, okay, it's your time, go big boom, they were like, no, I got nice neighbors. I have a house, I have a job. I have a really good life here. People are actually kind of nice. I mean, it's kind of screwed up. They had hope. They came here with no hope, and they got hope. People who have no hope become radicalized. Because people who have no hope and have no future are ripe to have a con man come along, or a con woman, or con they, and say, I will make your life better. And when you have no hope, if you're someone in the Middle East and you are living in an area like you're in Syria, in civil war, you have no hope. And somebody comes to you and says, you go and blow yourself up. You will have paradise in heaven, and you will be dubbed a hero, and we will make sure that your wife and your kids are taken care of for the rest of their life. They will never want for a roof over their head. They will never want for a meal, and they will get educations. And if you've got nothing else to provide to your family, and you're desperate enough, all of a sudden that starts to look really good. Now let's circle it back. If you are living in an area in the United States, and this isn't just in the inner cities, we're seeing this happening in rural America. You have a crappy school. You have education that has put you way behind your peers. Jobs have gone away. Everything in the system is stacked against you. That is your view. You have no hope. So if you're out in rural America and somebody comes to you in a militia or a white nationalist and goes, you know, we can be your family. We're going to take care of you. And we're going to train you, and we're going to give you purpose. And Bob over there, he's got a metal shop. He'll go ahead, show you metalworking, and go work for Bob. And all you got to do is drink in this hate. Same thing the person in Syria. Or if you're in the inner city, and this isn't a racial thing. There are white gangs in the inner city. There is, right? There's indigenous gangs. There's black gangs. There's person of color gangs. There's white gangs. And there's people that are interracial in the gangs. It's not a black issue, but it's the same issue. Oh, you come from a broken home. You have no family. You have no hope. You have no prospects. You have no job. You've gotten into a couple of little criminal issues on the side. So all these barriers are up. Well, tell you what, we'll be your family. You help us just do these things, and we'll take care of you. We've got your back. If you have no hope, these things are attractive to you. And there are things I will never understand. I can read about it. I can stand up here and talk about it, but I can't look you in the face and say, I've experienced that degree of non-hope because I've always had opportunity in front of me because I have privilege, but at least I'm willing to acknowledge my privilege. And this is the problem. This is where we need the investment. And this goes back to the protesters' demands. And this goes by where I don't like the word defund. I like the word unburden. And I like the words demilitarize. The Seattle police budget, when you look at the other cities, is a fat, bloated mess. The overtime pay that they are paid is ridiculous by any. And then they have the audacity. They have the audacity to cry, I can't live in Seattle. I'm not paid enough. $153,000. You're making as much money as a friggin' worker as Amazon. I don't mean at the warehouse. I mean South Lake Union. And you're crying you can't live in the city? What? It hurts the brain. We need to invest in education. Education is hope. We need to invest. Go down in Rainier. Go look down there at the infrastructure. Well, it's all their fault. The city's not investing in it. And there's a bunch of reasons why it happens. And it isn't just all this, it's the city's fault. No, it's not all the city's fault, but boy, the city and the system contributes it to a lot. If my street light burns out across the street, I speak English as a first language. I live in a community where we actually have an app that I could just get on my phone with an app and go, hey, street lights across the street. But if you live in a community where English isn't a first language, it's a second language, or maybe you don't speak English, and the street light burns out across the street, how do you even know who to contact to go, we have a broken street light? Well, they just shot out the lights. You know what? I lived in rural Texas in my young 20s, and I hung out with people that went around in pickup trucks on Fridays and Saturday nights and shot out the lights, just like Hal Ketchum's song, Small Town Saturday Night. It happens in rural. Anybody who's been in rural America sees all the bullet holes in the signs, right? Right, rural America, right here in Washington State. Go out in Eastern Washington. When I was filming a documentary in Namibia and I was in this neighborhood and here are the signs, one of the things I told my guide and translator where I was in, because the signs are perfect, they're all untouched. I was like, in the United States, these signs would either be gone or they'd be riddled with bullet holes. They were stunned by this. They were like, they couldn't believe it. There's no hope. And what's happening right now between COVID, 8 million Americans have slipped below the poverty line this year. Are you tired of the winning? I'm tired of the winning. 8 million Americans. Those are the people that slip below the poverty line. What's happening to the people that are already below the poverty line? Well, I'll tell you what. It's all these looters and rioters' faults. But if you come with us, I'll give you hope. Sound familiar? Here's the second thing. Seattle Police Department needs to stop with, well, we're going to arrest people and then but we don't really have anything to stick to make it happen. It's like it's friggin' revenge arrests and it's clogging up the system. Look what happened. I'm going to mention his name because he has been 100% transparent on this and it's all out there in public, right? Bennett was arrested after the 10-3, which we filmed, and the accusation from the Seattle Police Department was he was handing out shields, and shields are weapons. And they had the time when it happened, 7:06 p.m. That's in the police report. You know where Bennett was at 7:06 p.m.? And he has all the receipts and everything else to back it up. He was eating pizza at Pagliacci's. Well, he drove there. His car had a flat tire outside of Pagliacci's. All the streamer videos show Bennett's car wasn't on the car brigade. That's like his car was nowhere to be seen. It's just BS charges. Because, well, we want to get this car out of the car brigade. And we've seen this with other people in the car brigade. They get arrested, but then they get released. The charges are just hung, and then they sit on their car for days or weeks. Because, well, we're holding it for evidence. And this is all just about revenge. It's petty. Quite frankly, it's childish. And it's wasting real resources. The real problem, if you are
Chud, cannibalistic, humanoid, underground dwellers.
These are Chud.
Cannibalistic, humanoid, underground dwellers.
And I know not all of you are. And look, when I play the Chud clip, if you giggle, you're not a Chud. If you're outraged when I play it, yeah, you know I'm talking to you, and so you know you're a Chud. See, it's that simple. So I'm kind of talking to the people that are more on the right. Not just the Chuds, but the people who are right of me. The problem isn't we don't have enough police officers. The problem isn't they don't have enough money. The problem is they don't have enough resources. They're squandering the resources they have. The problem is the Seattle Municipal Court, and especially King County, is not doing their job at all. 4% went to trial. Of those, 75% were trial by jury. The other 25% were trial in front of judge. 79% pled guilty. But actually, when you start, and they don't have it in the report on the breakdown, but when you dive into the numbers, they don't add up. Seattle police doesn't need anything else. They need to stop making excuses and do their jobs. Seattle Police Officers Guild needs to stop fleecing the citizens of Seattle with the outrageous salaries that the average police officers are paid. And they need to bring cases to the municipal courts that are worth pursuing with evidence. Well, there's a backlog. We're working on it. We know from all of the protesters' arrests that the backlog thing is kind of noise. Sure, there's probably a backlog in some cases, but that's not the full reality. The full reality is they don't have any evidence to support the charges on the arrests that they have. That's the full reality. It's just clogging up the courts. Now, if you're watching this right now and you're saying to me, you're all wrong, we need more police, that's the answer. Well, looking for the chart. Right now, go back to that family of 4. If you have single worker, single person making income in your house, which again, I get is kind of the outlier now in Seattle, you're already paying about $2,050 a year for your tax dollars to keep the lights on in the Seattle Police Department. The next stop is Oakland. And the next stop after that?
You don't know San Francisco, Butters. It was the breeding ground of the hippie movement in the 60s. I swore I would never set foot in San Francisco. God help me.
So I'm confused. Tell me in the comments. You in San Francisco? Because I thought San Francisco was awful. And objectively, when I look at how San Francisco is dealing with their homeless crisis, and how they're dealing with their housing crisis, and how they're dealing with the small crime issue and everything they tie, the drug addiction and the alcoholism and the mental illness, they look like to be doing a worse job than us. As a matter of fact, San Francisco has basically admitted, if I remember about 18 months ago, it's like, this isn't working. It's not working. And they're pulling stuff back. So with that, we're going to go to your comments. Comparison to fire and SPD was shown. So is the question about fire and SPD? Yeah, we can go ahead and pull that up there. That's a good question. See, I can almost read your things, and I know you guys can probably, and ladies and theys. Again, I always catch myself in the you guys because it's the East Coast coming out. I even say it guys. But here we have it from openpayrolls.com. We did a search for fire. So any job title with the word fire in it, fire. And the average salary was $87,339. Average and mean are a little different. Yes, I get it. But that's what it is. It is almost half that of a Seattle police officer. And then again, for Seattle public school employees, it's $55,416. You're getting ripped off. Can you really objectively, metaphorically look at me in the face and go, I'm getting my money's worth. And damn, they should make more. Because if you want more, then you want higher taxes. Well, they need to cut taxes on something. What? School? So you want to create more hopelessness? I mean, getting rid of the navigation team was just it's just a revenge hit anyway. And also because of the crappy union agreement that the city signed, that is working in the confines that they are stuck working in. All right. Edmonds Police Department, $87K. Well, this is Pam. You just brought this up, and I will try to keep an eyeball right because your comments are, and so, and I know there's stuff coming from different. I right in time for Beavis. Great comment, Jason. I love the fact that we can actually pull the comments together from all 4 channels now. And we can make this a lot more interactive. It does make it a little harder because I have to kind of lean over and look at the screen. That's why you're seeing it. So we'll figure something out for my crappy eyes. Yeah. Fire. Back to your question here, Pam, or statement. It would be an interesting comparison. There was a community, it was in the news, and it's in the Midwest somewhere, and I don't know the name, and I wish I had it because I would just pull it out, but I don't have it, and I don't want to get it wrong. They, instead of hiring a police officer, hired a social services officer, and that social services officer went on calls. And in some cases, they went on calls with an armed officer, for instance, domestic violence calls, and in other cases, they just went on their own. And guess what that community discovered? Crime went down 17%, and the cost of that social service person was about half the cost of an officer. The program was so successful, they're hiring a second social services person. And this is actually a relatively small community with a relatively small police department. And there are other examples. Right here on the east side, we have co-responding mental health officers that go out on calls in about 5 communities. And it is a very effective program, and it works. And it goes back into, and I've said this till like people are probably sick of me hearing it. If you're a police officer, you show up at a mental health call, and you show up with a flak jacket, body armor, gun, taser, baton, pepper spray, that mentally ill person is already triggered right out of the gate just by your presence. This is not a soothing and comfortable presence. You're already set up for failure. And if you talk to most police officers, not all of them, but a majority of police officers don't want to do these calls. They don't want to be social workers. They don't want to be drug and alcohol rehab counselors. They don't want to be dealing with the marital bullshit. Yes, they definitely want to be where some guy has, or woman for them, because domestic violence goes both ways. And then you also have in the LGBTIQ community, right? You could very well have a woman battering a woman or a man battering a man. So it is cross gender, and it is a serious problem when you look at the data across all genders. But I'm not talking about the person that just beat the crap out of the rest of those. I'm talking about, the couple that's just arguing over stupid shit, and somebody yelled loud, and like the neighbors called them, they're just like, we don't know why you're here. And they're dangerous calls, and I get it. And maybe the person knocking on the door, because they are by nature one of the most dangerous calls to go on, maybe that person should be an armed officer. But if after like 1 or 2 minutes, it's just 2 people that are yelling at each other and it's BS, then maybe it's like, hey, I'm going to send Officer Johnson in over here. Officer Johnson is going to go talk to you, and I'm out. And then Officer Johnson is like, look, I think you guys need some help. I'm going to give you some resources. And then that officer's freed up to do officer stuff. It's so obvious. It's so easy. I don't know why this is so hard. Totally accurate. I was head of security for the largest homeless shelter in Pierce County for 5 years. Jason, I'm not exactly sure what you're saying. Totally accurate too, but thank you. Callie, I think that there are, I think there's kind of 3 subgroups that get into law enforcement, or to a lesser extent EMS, or, these things. I do think there are some people that do go in with the altruistic belief that they want to make the world a better place. I do believe there are some people that get in policing and that is their belief. I also think that there's some people that get into policing because they were beat up every day at school and their lunch money was stolen from them. And gosh darn it, I am never going to feel insecure again. So how can I do that? I will put myself in a position of power. And those are the people, those are the ones that are really, really scary. And then you have some that go in between. And then, of course, we have this thing, well, they get mental health evaluation and all that, but they don't get continuing evaluations. Police officers get exposed to trauma, and there's this culture of suck it up, buttercup. And this is a culture across the United States because we don't like to talk about mental illness. And so at the end of the day, if you're a police officer, whether you're a piece of crap officer or you're an officer that is coming from an altruistic place, you are generally meeting people all day long having the worst day of their lives. Or you're meeting some people who are self-entitled, the person trying to weasel out of the speeding ticket. You know the type of people I'm talking about. It wears you down. But there's this culture of but they get training. We get training, right? I know that's going to be, there's people, we get this training and they do this and they do that. And it's a sign of weakness if you dive in and use that stuff. It's against the blue line. It's against the code. So they don't do it. And then they get embittered. Or they see something kind of hinky. But then it's like, dude, that guy deserved it. Did you see his wife's face? Come on. Really? Okay. Now all of a sudden a good cop's in the machine, and that's a big part of the problem too. But the whole, I'll say it again, and I'll probably go in the comments and I'll just end it because I'm ranty at this point. The system isn't broken. The system is working perfectly. The system is working completely as designed. There is a contract that the city signed with the Seattle Police Officers Guild, the police union, that has now inflated salaries to the mean of $153,000 a year before benefits. Because, that Amazon worker, they get stock and they get medical. Well, no, that $153,000 mean is before benefits. And a police pension is pretty sweet. It's also pretty sweet that you could say become a police officer at 25 years old, retire at 45 years old, draw a pension, and then get another high-paying career where maybe you pay into a 401k for another 20 years, and then you get your 401k and your pension. So, no. And then you get the benefits. Talk to Boeing workers if you're a Boeing worker and Everett's getting shut down, 747's going away. And now the word is that the Renton line will move up to Everett, and Renton's going to go bye-bye in a few years. Who knows? I think the die's been cast for Boeing to leave this area 20 years ago. It was all because of... No, this was cast a long time ago. I've received 100 messages today with Restream Chat. Okay. Thank you, Restream Chat. I think we're probably going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank everybody for watching this, and thank you for your patience with the technical difficulties that we had at the start of the show. I was able to kind of figure out I don't know why it happened, because its settings I didn't change the setting. Nobody else came in here in the studio and messed with the settings. There's one particular setting in OBS that seems like whenever it updates, it seems like, and it blows this one setting up and everything gets real echoey. And I haven't had this problem for a long time, and I got complacent. And so, lesson learned. I need to make sure that one setting, for whatever reason, doesn't get checked. OBS, stop it. Driving me crazy. All right, Malcontent. Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing. I almost forgot. Brian, thank you so much. We don't pimp out the Venmo very hard. I don't talk about it very hard, but wow, thank you for your generosity today. Your generosity today. There was a conversation that was going on about the future of the Tango between me and the admins and the mods earlier today, and that came in while we were talking about the future, and we all collectively were immediately, that is the universe telling us that what we're talking about is the way that we should go. And so with that, thank you. And Brian, again, we took this as a sign. Oh, and by the way, the technical issues, I'm going to blame on Mercury retrograde. Okay, Malcontent out.
The Malcontentment Tango is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with three key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live as they happen. To defend the First Amendment, using our rights of a free press, and to petition the government for redress of grievances, and to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals, including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support us is to like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Periscope, Twitch, and Instagram. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.